Hello, today we have the honor and privilege of having a guest speaker with us. I would like to introduce Norman Nance, who is the Vice President of Environmental Initiatives and Marketing for a furniture manufacturer with corporate headquarters in Green Bay called Krieger International, or KI. So Norm, thank you first of all, and thanks for coming in.
Pleasure.
I'd like you to share a little bit about the company as well as your background. So, the floor is yours.
I joined the company 18 years ago, moving here from Grand Rapids, Michigan, where the vast majority of our competitors reside. And I moved here because KI had a very unique story. And the origin of KI dates back to the 40s, dates back to Aurora, Illinois. Shortly thereafter, it relocated to Green Bay, Wisconsin, was owned by the Krieger family. Through the early to mid 80s, the company went through 2 leverage buyouts that was championed by the CEO of our organization, and basically took it to what it is today, which is a 100% employee-owned organization. We're a global company. We have manufacturing facilities in India and Mexico and Canada, all through North America, 5 in North America, 3 here in the state of Wisconsin. And the Green Bay corporate headquarters, which is also a manufacturing facility, is located right here, a few miles down the road.
Okay, and the lines of business, could you be a little more specific to give us the lines of business you're involved in?
As an organization, we manufacture what we refer to in our industry as contract furniture, things that you would see in offices, major universities, K through 12 facilities such as classroom furniture, tables and chairs and conference rooms. We do hospital furniture, mostly patient room, lobby lounge, patient day beds and recliners, things you might see in patient rooms. And then all of that crosses over into the government market as well. We have a big focus on state, local, and federal government entity as well. Very
good. And Norman, can you share a bit about your background, where you've worked in the past and how you got into the position you're in?
Yes. My roots go back to the Carolinas, where I grew up around furniture. I studied furniture design out of college with the intent of designing furniture the rest of my life. Transitioned back to Grand Rapids, Michigan, where I went to college, and spent the first half of my career there in the Grand Rapids area working in the contract furniture side, designing and managing categories for different companies there. As I said earlier, 18 years ago I moved to Green Bay and took on a couple of various positions here at Green Bay in the marketing area, and then transitioned about 10, 11 years ago into what I do now, which is really focused on the architectural and design community and trying to build awareness with those people out there and trying to increase the level of understanding and rapport that we have with these people around the country. And then of course the sustainability piece, which has become the vast majority of what I do, mostly because the inquiries and the questions that are coming from the architectural and design community, as well as from our clients. As much of this now is being driven by clients, facilities people with major companies or hospitals or universities or what have you. So.
Very good. Norman, can you explain what sustainability means within KI?
Boy, I take a really simplistic approach to that. To me, it's doing more with less. And I think you can look across the board. Our focus is efficiencies, material efficiencies, energy efficiencies, water efficiencies, landfill efficiencies. Each of our facilities are really focused now on zero landfill. We have found a couple of alternative recycling streams for products and materials that have historically always gone to the landfill. And we're working toward that effort. And now we've set baselines for each of our facilities for energy consumption and use. As you can imagine, manufacturing process with powder coat lines and things of that nature that finish the metal and the products are very energy intensive. So a lot of energy use, a lot of processed water. Again, we've got a powder coat line and all these pieces are going through it and being washed off and cleaned up before they're painted. Tremendous amount of water. Plus we have a chroming facility in Green Bay that uses a lot of water, and it's a closed loop system now that we repurpose and recycle and recapture. So we're always working toward greater efficiencies and doing more with less, whether it's materials or energy or whatever.
Okay, thank you very much. Norman, could you explain how sustainability at KI has evolved over time, maybe since you've been there? Requirements, customers, suppliers, the marketplace?
Sure. A tremendous amount has happened, I say, in the last 7 to 8 years maybe. The interesting thing is that KI as an organization, we've done so much of this in the past. What's really changed in the last several years is that expectation from the design community and the architectural community and the end user to to do these things, but not only to be able to say you do them, but to document it, to set some baselines, to set some goals, to set some guidelines, and then to have it audited by a third party so that you've got some validity there. And there's a variety of third-party certifications that are out there today that we're certainly not required to have, but it gives us a competitive edge. Costs us a lot of money. There are several of these that are, upwards of $150,000 a year just to maintain. But they're third-party certifications like Green Guard, an indoor air quality certification, is something you go through on a quarterly basis on all the various components that are made up, within the various products. And it's really all about what kind of off-gassing comes off of these products and sort of validating that there are none. And then having it certified, having it tested, and having the certificate posted so the architect or the designer can, sort of validate that and have that certificate that says it meets those requirements.
So are those requirements to do business with certain customers to have these certifications, and are they willing to pay a premium for your goods because you have this certification?
The first part of the question, by all means, they do expect it and they do require it. We go through what you might know as an RFP process, a request for proposal, or a request for pricing, or a request for information. It's becoming increasingly increasingly that we would see these kinds of requests written into RFPs and RFIs, whether it's recycled content or certain use of chemicals or meeting certain levels of indoor air quality, or whatever the case might be. So we're seeing that more frequently from the end user. The second piece of the question, are they willing to pay for it? For the most part, they're not willing to pay a premium for something that might be deemed more sustainable. But keep in mind too, in our industry, most of what we do, we don't charge a premium for. Take Green Guard for instance. Green Guard, as I said, it's $150,000 a year to maintain that. We don't charge a premium for that. That's just now built, and that's inherent in our product line. It's expected, and that's standard protocol. FSC, which is the use of managed forest woods that come out of managed forest, those raw materials cost us more money, and we treat it as a special at KI. So we haven't got to the point to where the price parity is there to offset the cost to just do it across the board as a standard product. So it's a premium. Most people aren't willing to pay that premium, and it's 2 or 3%. Now, having said that, if certain people or companies or universities, that's where I get it mostly, if they're trying to achieve a certain maybe LEED rating for their building, and that credit's very important to them, and that furniture is playing a big role because there's a lot of wood in the furniture they're buying, yes, they'll do that. But for the most part, no.
Okay, and I was wondering, for our audience, could you explain a little bit about more in depth on the LEED certification for builders and what the level certification is?
Sure.
Differences, similarities.
Sure. The LEED rating system, think of it as products. There's a variety of LEED rating systems out there that were developed 10, 12 years ago by the USGBC, which is the United States Green Building Council. So the company developed the products, which are the rating systems. There's rating systems for new construction, for existing buildings, for healthcare, for schools, for residential, and so on. So there's different rating systems, all sort of built around the same basic principles of energy and atmosphere and materials and sites and water and energy use and those types of things. So they certify the building based on the level of environmental compliance that it might have. Furniture plays a role into that. So some people think that there's such thing as LEED certified furniture, and there really is no such thing. LEED is for buildings. But furniture plays a key role when you look at recycled content and regional materials and renewable materials and off-gassing air quality standards like Green Guard and things like that. Level, on the other hand, is relatively new to our industry. It's been out for a couple of years, and it's now an ANSI standard. It's a rating system specific to contract furniture. So that rating system, very similar to the way LEED has been created, it focuses on 3 areas. It's a product certification, so each and every product has a certification that meets certain levels of points. But they really look at 3 phases of an organization. They look at the organization, what they do in the area social responsibilities and hiring practices and those kinds of things. And then they look at the facility in which the products are developed. So how do they look at energy conservation, water conservation, and chemical reduction, and those kinds of things as it relates to the facility. And then thirdly, they look at the environmental attributes of the products, whether they be the off-gassing, renewable materials, rapidly renewable materials. We're doing something now that's very interesting, and that is designing products to extend their life, to make them more serviceable, make them easier for people to maintain. Instead, it used to be a chair broke, you throw it away. Now a chair broke, you repair it. But also designing it in a way and accompanying it with disassembly instructions, so that as a consumer, when you do decide to get rid of it, if you're not going to donate it or repurpose it, you can disassemble it. And we show you how to do that, and we tell you what of the products within, the materials within the products are recyclable, whether it's the steel, the aluminum, the plywood, or what have you. So
is that what
that's all part of the, that's one credit within the level rating system.
Is that the cradle-to-cradle design aspect, or is that a bit different?
It's a bit different, but it's one of the things now that we're seeing in our industry.
Okay. And Norman, could you actually also explain the Green Guard and FSC certifications, what those are about in your industry? Or?
Sure. Green Guard is an organization. Most people, they hear Green Guard and they think the product must be sustainable in some way, and it is, but it only applies to off-gassing or indoor air quality. Green Guard is a brand. They're located in Georgia. They take components and pieces and parts and products, and they really look at worst-case scenario, and they test it for off-gassing of formaldehydes and aldehydes and volatile organic compounds and phthalates and about 300 different chemicals. And that's a third-party certification that we go through. So it's a quarterly project that we are, we're into Green Guard, I think, now for 7 years. So, we've been at it for a while, but they will randomly audit us and ask for a chair back or a seat bottom or a tabletop or something. So we produce it, we send it to them, they test it, they validate it, and it goes on their website. And then there's a certificate for each of the products that say a certain brand of products meet the indoor air quality requirements. And that is a LEED credit for a building for indoor air quality, but it's also a level point or credit for the level rating system that the products don't off-gas. So that's Green Guard. FSC is Forest Stewardship Council, and this is all about buying wood materials that ultimately come from a well-managed certified forest. So, as I said earlier, we charge a premium for this now because I'm finding that most of the forest in North America are managed properly to these guidelines and standards. Most of the manufacturers like ourselves that produce in-use products like tables and chairs, we're certified and we have a chain of custody number to produce the products with FSC certified materials and pass on that chain of custody to the client. What we're missing now is the middle guy, the guy who makes the plywood, the guy who makes the particle board, the guy who makes the laminate, which has fiber products in it. All of these guys aren't on board yet with certifications for FSC, which is why we pay a premium. That pricing parity, that pricing gap has reduced significantly over the last 3 to 4 years. So what used to be a 20% premium is now 3 to 5% premium. And I really think in the next year or two, we'll see that just go away. That FSC certified materials will just become standard. Okay. Just standard protocol for what we do.
All right, thank you for explaining that. Yeah. I'm kind of curious, in your nature of your business, you do a fair amount of work in the education segment for furniture and wall systems, government bodies. Do you think that in itself makes you having more of the legislative or certifications required? Or do you see other lines of business, not necessarily furniture related, taking part in the same types of certifications of sustainability? So is the furniture market any more or less prone to more certifications related to sustainability? And is that due to the large amount of government work you do?
Well, I don't think there's anything different necessarily to what we're required to do as other industries or organizations. Most people think that LEED was created by the government, and it's absolutely not the case at all. As a matter of fact, LEED was around for a long time, probably 4, 5, 6 years before government started adopting some elements of LEED. And even today, certain cities, certain states, certain municipalities, certain universities have certain sustainable guidelines, and some of them do require minimum level of silver LEED certification, if you're using public funds to build a new K-12 school or something like that. But for the most part, the guidelines are, let's look at energy reduction. Let's make sure we reduce energy today 10% below what it was in 2010 or 3 years ago or 5 years ago or whatever. But it does continue to evolve. I mean, there are an ever-changing list of requirements out there. GSA from the federal government today is looking at level as a requirement to be on GSA contract and sell furniture through GSA. They haven't adopted it yet, but they've been talking about it for 18 months now because they think that's important to them. Is that what drove level? By no means whatsoever. So what I do find is they're not driving it, but they do tend to adopt it. And it's usually after the fact. I have more universities and more healthcare hospital facilities that are requiring it probably than government entities.
Okay, very good.
And large corporations. We do work with Microsoft and Amazon and Facebook and some of these large ones, and a lot of these organizations, to attract and retain the employee base that they're pursuing, sustainability is a big issue to them and becomes part of their corporate policy and guidelines and cultures.
Okay, and kind of talking about that very concept, KI is a very successful employee-owned company, part of an ESOP and things like that. And what are the employees' perceptions about the importance of sustainability, and how does that play out? What do you perceive from the employees?
Well, I can tell you 5, 6, 7 years ago, it was a Norman thing. Everybody thought that anything that was tried to be done in the organization that remotely related or looked like sustainability was something that I was trying to drive. As you can imagine, a lot has changed. One of the things that we're really focused on across all of our facilities is employee engagement and education. And the first hurdle was helping them understand that this is not because I'm driving it. This is not because our management group is driving it. This is not because Green Bay is this tree-hugging community. It's because the client and our client base and customer base is expecting it from us. And for us to continue to grow our business and develop the markets that we're trying to develop and compete in the landscape today that we need to compete in, you have to do these kinds of things. Now, so you couple that with employee engagement and education to now showing them how it affects the bottom line. I mean, you take landfill reduction in itself. I mean, all the tons and tons of stuff that we used to put into the landfill, we paid every time we dumped it. We paid money every time we dumped it. Now we find alternative recycling streams, some of which are even paying us money for it. So whether we're giving it away or selling it, we're still saving all the cost of, and this is just one example. We have a tremendous amount of airlines that run through our companies that run all kinds of machines and equipment. We go through audits where we do pipe leak test on weekends, and just simple things like having many pipe leaks throughout the facility that leak the compressor down, that continue to run these very large compressors, drive up the energy costs. And, I mean, there's a myriad of things that we continue to look at as an organization. One of the more recent things are in the facility, or what we're doing is what we refer to as dumpster dives, because we're trying to make sure we're recycling everything that can be recycled in the proper recycling stream that it's dedicated or to go. And so we'll do random audits on the floor after the plant shuts down. We'll go out there, find a dumpster, dump it out, and figure out what's in this. Is there wood in here that should be in this container? Are there metal components that should be in that container? Paper, cardboard, or corrugated that should be in that container? And then we take it and we use that as an education process for the employees the next day or the next week to really help them understand why it is we're doing what we're doing, what the expectations are from not only the organization but for the customer base out there, and really how it affects our bottom line. And now you add level to this, which is a recent certification for us. That's another credit within level. So that becomes part of the audit that we get every year from a third party. And if we don't educate them and train them through that process during the course of the year, and we fail the audit, it puts product certifications at jeopardy.
Okay. Very interesting. I think you've done a great job at integrating that into the culture of KI.
It's taken many years.
Yeah.
We have a green team, we have a green portal, trying to just encourage engagement and involvement through all of our facilities and all of our employees.
Norman, could you explain the Green Behind the Red program at KI, what that is about?
Yeah, it's sort of a little play that we put together a couple years ago with our logo. If you're familiar with the logo, Krieg International, we've gone by KI for many years. You'll see the KI is always in red. It's a very certain, specific Pantone red color. And you'll see that the KI is always at a very specific angle. It's the way the logo was set up many years ago. We never deviate from it whatsoever. It's red or it's black and white, period. What we did a couple years ago in order to try to build greater awareness on what we were doing behind the scenes and what we as a Wisconsin-based company have been doing for years is we did a little play on this green behind the red. And if you see the logo, you'll see that one of the corners of one of the red is tipped up and it's green behind it. And it's really designed to build greater awareness of what it is we've been doing for years, and that behind this red KI, this organization, is an incredible sustainable story that's been in place for many, many years. Without exaggeration, it's just now we're starting to really document it and track it and set reduction goals in every facet of everything we do in the organization.
And it went over pretty well with the employees and things?
Oh, it has. As a matter of fact,
customers?
when we launched it, I did an employee initiative. We had a document that we asked people to sign, and basically it was a checklist of probably 15 different sustainable things, whether it was recycle properly or reduce water or reduce energy or shut your computer off or carpool. We incentivize people to carpool by giving you a preferred parking spot, and that's pretty interesting, when it's 10 below zero, and you can get a preferred parking spot by carpooling with a buddy. Not to mention you save the money, but so we had these people sign it and check off the things that they were willing to do, not just at work, but at home, trying to build that awareness there. And to do that, we gave them a coffee mug with the green behind the red logo on it. So of course, you got a free gift. It went over very well.
Okay, sounds good.
And at the same time, we eliminated all styrofoam coffee cups. So it motivated them to sign it, or they had to bring in their own cup anyways.
Okay, all right. Norman, also I noticed on your website you talk about a three-pronged approach to KI's environmental quality policy. Can you share with us a few thoughts about that three-pronged approach?
Yeah, it's very simple, but again, it's been in place for years. What we do now is we try to continue to build on it and increase awareness. And it really looks at the manufacturing process in all of our facilities. How can we be more efficient, more environmentally friendly in the manufacturing process? So this talks about removing solvent-based adhesives, removing solvent-based finishes, removing anything that potentially could affect the off-gassing of the product, but even worse, affect the employee base that's working in that environment by the reduction of chemicals and anything in the manufacturing process. The second piece of it was material selection. Looking at new materials or materials with a greater percentage of recycled content that we can incorporate into our products to reduce the amount of virgin materials being used, and to make sure any off-fall that we do incur is recyclable and is being recycled, either here or at the job site from where the product's being shipped, such as corrugated packaging and stuff. And then the third phase of the three-prong approach is really looking at how we design and engineer products. And as I said earlier, used to design products in our industry to last a period of time. When the product broke, you threw it away if it was outside of warranty. Now the focus is really much different in that you design products now to not only be durable and meet the guidelines or requirements, the expectations from the customer and the warranty guidelines, but also to make it more easily repairable, whether it's an arm or back or a seat bottom or a skin on a panel or whatever the case might be. So make the service parts available, make it very intuitive to disassemble or to replace the part, and then the other piece of that is how do you recycle it at the end of its life when you do decide to get rid of it? So things like creating disassembly instructions and identifying the components that are made up of the various products, steel, plywood, polypropylene, nylon plastics, fabric and foam, and telling them what can and can't be recycled and helping them through that process. So they're being more responsible at the end of life.
So that's your responsible product design at KI. That's kind of encapsulated in what you just talked about there.
Well, and there's one other piece of that. We have what we call a DFE process now, which is Design for Environment, which is part of the sort of the intro to any product development initiative at KI. And there's certain sustainable attributes of a product that we look at and consider in the early phases of developing a product. But yes, it's all part of that product, whether it's the attributes that make up the product. In other words, can we look at certain plastics that maybe have a greater content of recycled materials, or steel or aluminum, or is there something that's got a smaller sort of life cycle assessment or carbon footprint that we might want to consider? Or are there new materials that maybe you want to consider incorporating into this new product for a variety of reasons? So there's several things that make up that sort of sustainable criteria, if you will, around new product development.
Okay, thank you very much. Norman, noticed on the website KI been awarded and earned different certifications or awards recently. Could you talk about some of those, and maybe perhaps one that's the most significant in your own mind as far as recognition that KI has earned or been awarded dealing with sustainability?
There have been several through WasteWise, a variety of WasteWise initiatives, but most of these are driven by the facilities, the factories. We have engineering people, engineering management people for each of the facilities. I would say one that's most significant, I think this one happened 2 years ago, and it was a WasteWise award for waste reduction, specifically waste reduction. And I can't quote the numbers, but it's pretty mind-boggling when you look at the numbers on the press release on the website of the number of pounds that were diverted from the landfill, and the pounds that were diverted by just being more efficient in some of the manufacturing processes. But that's what that's all about. It's about doing more with less. It's about reducing waste. There's other awards like energy efficiencies and energy reduction use, and which ultimately drives down the greenhouse gas emissions that we track and report now as well. But
okay, well, I got to congratulate you for being the guru of green at KI. You kind of
it's a fun job.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about the metrics in using and measuring the sustainability program? We read in some cases there's even some disagreement about what is the carbon footprint of something and how that's measured. So discuss a little bit about the actual metrics as you gauge how you're doing on these different items.
Well, as I said earlier, I think some of these things we've been doing for years. It's that measurement and those metrics that are items that we've put in place just in the last 18 to 24 months. So much being driven by the Level Initiative and the expectations from the consumer and the architectural community, design community, and our ability to sort of document what it is that we've done. So we have metrics for pretty much everything, whether it's achieving that zero landfill, or whether it's the reduction of energy, reduction of processed water, reduction of chemicals. And the idea is, and we have task teams for each of those. So we have an energy reduction task team for each of our facilities. We have a water reduction task team for each of our facilities. We have a landfill reduction team for each of our facilities. And we conduct conference calls. Right now we're doing it every 2 to 4 weeks because we're sort of early in tracking actually starting the second year of tracking all this data with all these metrics, and really trying to sort of revisit the goals for 2013 through 2015, a couple of years. So for us, it's relatively new. It's data that we're tracking and that we'll continue to look at and continue to move toward achieving those goals.
All right, thank you. Norman, when you hear about this triple bottom line orientation of the 3 Ps of planet, people, and profits, how does that resonate with the business community, or how does it resonate with employees or suppliers or customers, the triple bottom line scenario and way of looking at things?
You went back several years ago. I think most people, except for the people who are out preaching that gospel, didn't quite even understand what it was. And certainly as an organization, we struggle with some of that with our own employee base. So, for us, being an employee-owned company, it is all about profitability and people, our organization as a whole. But it's just a matter of continuing to educate, continuing to engage and encourage engagement across the board, and sharing that information with them and helping them understand it and understand what it means to the organization. You know, I think some end users are a little more savvy in that area and understand that a little better, especially some of the larger groups that might be part of a specifying entity of a major university campus or something like that, where they've been educated in that area. And certainly the same with some of the larger architectural and design communities who have studied it for a while.
Okay, so pulling out your crystal ball, how do you see it playing out 15 to 20 years from now in the business community, how sustainability is perceived, and this triple bottom line 20 years from now, how will it be different?
Well, I can tell you that just in the last 2 or 3 years, things have evolved so rapidly that I would have never guessed that 2 or 3 years ago. I'll give you another example that I always share with my sales organization. When you talk about simple things like recycled content, it's gotten now to be the expectation that certain materials are going to have certain levels of recycled content. Do you realize that as recent as 3 to maybe 4 years ago, if you called KI and you wanted to order a metal file cabinet, which we produce thousands of in our Canadian facility, and you wanted that metal cabinet to have a certain level of recycled steel, we had to go source it. It cost us more money, and we passed that upcharge on to you. Today, every piece of steel that we buy has at minimum 25% of recycled content, whether we're buying coil steel for the production line or stamped steel that's, you know, part ready to fabricate and paint. So just that change within the last, you know, literally 36 to 48 months, which has all been driven by us as consumers recycling more and making recycling materials more readily available to put back into the recycling stream, whether it's corrugated, whether it's steel, whether it's aluminum, you know, whatever. So, you know, we have LEED now. LEED continues to evolve. We've got Level now. Level continues to evolve. There's already different discussions about different levels of Level for certification. I think the next big thing is really the whole carbon footprint, the whole use of renewable energy, the whole life cycle assessment of products. And those are things that we as an organization are just starting to look at, but they're also elements that require additional manpower, require chemists and PhDs and, you know, those types of resources that aren't always readily available.
Okay. And the last question is kind of a Barbara Walters question, and I like your opinion on if businesses were not forced to comply with this by government or their customers, would they really do it on their own? That corporate social responsibility or sustainability, would they do it on their own? Your perspective on that, please.
Well, I guess I can only speak for ourselves, and as I said earlier, we've done this for years. Are there things we're doing today that are new because it is a requirement? Yeah, there are. Not a lot, but it's really about managing it, maintaining it, creating the metrics, and tracking it, and the third-party validation or certification. I mean, I can tell you, I don't know that I would incur the cost to do a third-party audit in 6 major facilities for the sake of doing it, unless it was part of, in this case, the level certification requirements and the expectations from the design community. I would hope that I could show them the data and that would suffice, but that no longer works. So, you know, I'm sure there are elements, but I will tell you this, that 10 years ago, having this discussion at corporate was a whole different deal. And now we have metrics that show cost savings. They know what energy reduction means. They know what a landfill dump costs. They know what it means to no longer dump that, but to have a recycling stream for it. So, I mean, we're an employee-owned company. We're all stockholders in this company. That's how I plan to retire. And every dime I can save is a penny in my pocket, you know, potentially. So, it's just becoming more and more the culture of the company.
Very good. Norman, I want to thank you very much for taking the time and explaining this.
Thank you.
And
appreciate it.
Thank you for sharing with our students.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thanks for having me.